So in this video, I'm going to talk about the color feedback system that Summit uses. So when you're in the year page or a lot of pages throughout Summit, you're going to see a lot of green, yellow, or orange and red, right? So I think it's supposed to be yellow, but some people call it orange. Now, what do those colors mean? Green means you're on track. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Yellow means danger, danger. Something might go wrong over here. And red means you are off track. Now, right off the bat, I can tell you that in a power focus area, it will turn red if it's already overdue. That means the line has passed and you have not passed it yet. Otherwise, it stays gray even if you've already attempted, but did not pass it. So not passing it is not what turns it red. It's not passing it before it's due that turns it red. Now, with projects, it's a little different. The project color is usually the color of the final product. So if you go over a project, this one right here, you can see how the student got greens on all of their final project work. And that's why they actually ended up with green for that project. Now, on this project right here, that's yellow, this is actually a project that's still ongoing. So, and I know that because the line is over it. So it's not yet completed. Now, the yellow is because the lowest checkpoint, which again are the stepping stones that you have to complete as you're trying to work towards a final project, is yellow. And so the color of the lowest checkpoint is going to be the one that stays. Now, if there was a checkpoint here that was red, then the project would be red. And I can show you how that looks like with a student that has red projects. So let's wait for that to load. And while that's loading, I can also tell you that the year page is probably the best place to get this kind of information right off the bat, right? Now, here's a red project, right? So this is a student who did not do very well in this project. All these checkpoints, most of them were yellow or red. And at the end of the day, the final products were red as well. Now, this is going to happen if the student did not submit the work or if the work did not do very well. We'll talk about what each color means in a second here, right? So that's kind of the general idea of it. Now, if you also go within a project, right? So let's say, for example, this one, you can see the colors the person got for each checkpoint here as well. And if you click on one of the final products or one of the checkpoints and open the actual submission of the checkpoint by clicking on the top over here, you actually can see the feedback the teacher gave. There will often be highlights in the rubric indicating what the student is likely to get, and often be comments. Now, because this is the demo, you don't see the highlights in the rubric or the comments, but they're very important ways for the student to know exactly how to do better. Remember, feedback is crucial in Summit, so it's really about getting that feedback in the checkpoints and following through on it to allow you to get to the final product and do a good job. Now, the same can happen if you click on the final product and go to it, you can actually see the grade that the teacher gave. So, for example, this one was a 2.5, right? So it's somewhere between a 2 and a 3 in the rubric. And again, they will often be highlighted, the rubric, to tell the student exactly why they got that. And the teacher will often leave comments as well. Another place to go directly there is as soon as you get scores, there should be a little button here that says View Scores. And if you click on that, it will take you to the final product, and it will actually be able to see any scores which are there as well. Now, this also shows in the progress screen. Every time a student submits something and passes a content assessment, the progress screen will show a little green check mark showing that they passed the content assessment. And it will also show whenever they attempt it. So, and then not pass it. And it will also show every time they submit projects. Now, if I show you a student who has submitted a lot of projects, you will see some of that in their progress screen. So in this progress screen, you can see every time the student actually scores, gets a score, is noted there. Every time they submit something, it's noted there, right? So the progress screen is another interesting place to get information about that. If you go to the grade screen, whether you are in the actual project screen or the power focus area screen, the same color coding system works. Green means passing, means good. Red means behind, right? Green means I'm where I'm supposed to be with my cog skills. So let's go ahead and switch here to a student who's struggling with projects, and then I can show you how their progress screen would kind of look like if I go to the grade screen. So there it is. You see it says off track, so therefore red. Now you see the the yellow here means that it's below where it needs to be, but not too below where it needs to be. Otherwise, it would have been red. Our focus areas, which are behind, turn red, right? So that's kind of how that system works for color coding. Now that I've showed you on the system, I'm just going to kind of review what that means. What do those colors actually mean? So now, remember, each of these checkpoints is going to be graded, but it doesn't actually affect the student's grade in the class until the final product. Only the final product actually counts, and the power focus areas and additionals, right? But within a project, only the final actually counts. Now, if you get a red, it often means that the student failed to demonstrate mastery either because you were missing work or turned in low quality work. If that's before the due date, the students may have a chance to fix it. If it's after the checkpoint due date, the student may or may not have the chance to fix it. Often it's the case that teachers will just tell the students, make sure you follow the feedback that I gave you and fix this by the final product where it gets regraded as part of the final product submission. And then the final product color will override whatever grade they got. Now, the student in this position needs to use resources, contact the teacher, work with friends if necessary, use online resources, or even come see the teacher during office hours or SDL in order to catch up on their understanding and skill development so they can do better. So in a seventh grade, for example, just as an example, if the minimal is a 2.5 in order to be at seventh grade level, and a 3.5 is the target, 4.5 is what they need for 100%. They can actually go above that, but 4.5 is the 100%. If a student is below 2.5 and not tracking towards a 2.5 at least, I will give them a red. If a student is above 2.5 but below 3.5, which is that target, I will usually give a yellow. Now that means that the student is okay to move on, but could make significant improvements on their skills still. So they still should do the same kinds of steps that the students in red did, just with less urgency. Now, if you get a green, that typically means that even at the checkpoint, you are already demonstrating the skills at 3.5 or above, which means you are meeting the target and on good track to do well in the final product. Now, if that's the case, you can still correct things that I left feedback on so that you can do even better by the time the final product comes in. Remember that checkpoint feedback gets overridden by the final product. Now, in math classes, you'll also get feedback on the checkpoints on the whether or not students completed homework. But that is just that did it or not did it, and it does not affect the color of the actual checkpoint. And don't forget that the color of the worst checkpoint is the one that stays on the project while the project is in progress. So you can always fix the color of a checkpoint if the teacher lets you, or by resubmitting it, especially if it's before the due date. Um, but at the end, it gets overridden by the color of the final product. Now, once you submit a final product, it's often the case that the draft can be reevaluated. There's a draft submission and then a final submission. Now, the final submission is really due on a window. Now, if you don't turn it in past the window, then it becomes overdue, and you're usually put in a mandatory recovery kind of plan. And if you don't continue to make steps to show that you are making efforts to submit what's overdue or fix what it was told you to fix, then the grade becomes final and you will have to wait for another project that hits the same cognitive skills in order to improve your grade. The last thing that I want to mention about the color coding is that in math units, end of unit assessments are like a test, right? And the color coding depends on the grade that you got on that test. So again, if you are below grade level, at grade level, or above grade or level, or at least meeting the target, that's what determines that color. Now, math unit tests are a little different from projects because when you get a score for a math unit, that's permanent, right? In the sense that there's not a future math unit that can replace that grade. The projects are not like that. If you do a bad on a project and there's another project that hits the same skills, the future skills can replace or because the system will take the maximum grade. But the math grades just average across the year. So it's very important that when given opportunities to, a lot of times the teachers will let you uh, do something to improve your math grade, whether it's doing additional portfolio problems, test corrections, test retakes, whatever it may be the case. So that's important because the math grades cannot be fixed by future work unless you do these recovery steps. So I hope that makes it clear about how the color coded system works in Summit, and that I gave her a good idea of what you can do in those. And I hope to see you in the next video where we're going to start with talking about each of the Summit pages in detail and what you can do in them. I'll see you guys then.